Welcome to the latest episode of SSCI Insights, a new interview series from the Consumer Goods Forum, where we sit down with our members and partners of the CGF Sustainable Supply Chain Initiative, or SSCI, to hear their insights on how the SSCI is working to build trust in sustainability standards worldwide. My name is Sabrina, and today I am joined by Yone Dewberry, Senior Vice President and Chief Supply Chain Officer at Land OLakes. Thank you for joining me today, Yone.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Great. Let's get started with our first question. So Land OLakes is a relatively new member of the CGF and joined the SSCI coalition very early on. Why was it important for Land OLakes to be a part of the SSCI?
It's a great question, and sustainability in all its forms has a natural connection for Land OLakes. You probably understand that we are a farmer-owned co-op, and farmers have always been and always will be at the forefront of sustainability. And some people might ask, like, why or how? Well, when you think about it, if you own a farm, whether it's a dairy farm, a crop farm, or any kind of farm, the use of the land is something that you must sustain forever. So sustainability is really important. Whether the farm's used for grazing, or growing, they need that farm every year. And then they pass it down from one generation to the next. So they really need it to be sustainable forever. So the opportunity to join the coalition and be part of it and have a voice in something that's extremely important to us was a no-brainer. Agriculture itself can be a huge partner and positive contributor to the whole idea of sustainability, and we want to be part of that.
That's very encouraging to hear that. And indeed, you mentioned agricultural, and as you know, that SSCI, we actually just launched our primary production scope. So that also includes land-based agriculture, which I believe you're also part of. So now that we're touching upon the primary production, so we know that you are an instrumental part of the development of the primary production criteria, spending a lot of hours in Zoom calls with other SSCI members and wordsmithing the expectations of the third-party programs. How do you intend to use the benchmark and its results going forward?
My answer might surprise people a little bit. And yes, we did spend lots of hours on the Zoom. My eyes hurt sometimes, but it was well worth it. And I say that to say, we're not fully sure how we're going to use the benchmarks going forward. And it's because, like any other benchmark, you really never understand the value until you begin to use it. You really have to start using it. But here's what we know. So we're going to use it, but here's what we know. We know that supply chains are not discrete entities, that all supply chains are connected to each other in one way, shape, or form. And they're all incredibly complex. It doesn't matter which industry in your supply chain is incredibly complex. And if the last 18 months haven't shown us anything, it's highlighted the complexity and the interconnection of all those supply chains. And so the power behind this benchmarking and the universal standards will help to remove some of that complexity around standards and verifications. Because if we're going to solve this sustainable supply chain question we have, this issue we have, we got to all work together around this new set of standards so that we can leverage the results from one organization to the other. And so we can all be better partners to both our suppliers and our customers. And a set of standards and a benchmarking is the only way to do that. So we don't know the full benefit we're going to get, but we know this is the right thing to do.
I think you come with a very perfect mindset to begin with. And indeed, we do not know the benefits of SSCI until we've actually got the schemes applying to the benchmarks and until they've actually gone through several improvement processes together with the coalition members. So yes, we completely agree with you. Now that we're talking about supply chain, responsible sourcing and due diligence are no longer a foreign concept to the consumer goods industry, but there is still a lot of complexity. What do you see as the biggest challenges and opportunities to come for companies as they try to navigate this complex landscape?
Yeah, this one is a really interesting one to me, because I think that the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity are both the same. And it revolves around, how do we work together? And how do we do that in a seamless fashion so it doesn't make anybody's supply chain more complex? And it's transparent to all. And the reason it's an opportunity and a challenge is because while we have to solve these issues together, we are all competing against each other. So the mindset of, we only compete is the thing that is the challenge and the opportunity, right? So how can we compete and work together at the same time? That's what we're trying to figure out, is how do we compete, whether it's against other dairy companies in our case, or other consumer companies, but then how do we work together, right? With a common set of standards. And the industry really has to figure this out. The industry being the entire, consumer goods industry, and every industry in reality, not just our industry. We all have to figure that out. How do we compete and work together at the same time? Because one of the things that we know is that this patchwork of schemes and third-party audits and all these self-created surveys we've done, we're part of the reason that there's complexity. We've created this complexity, right? So whether it's our customers asking us for all these different verifications, which are slightly different, which cause complexity and issues, or we're asking for the same thing from our suppliers, we have to say, and we do it because we want to compete with each other. But the question is, how can you do that in a way that you still compete, but are still transparent with each other? That to me is the fundamental challenge and opportunity. Not easy.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I'd like to echo that. You touched upon a very interesting point there, especially when it comes to the SSCI working group and coalition. It's always about striking the balance, and that's why we're actually creating the benchmark, because we know that many of the companies in the SSCI coalitions, they have their priorities, internal priorities, at the same time also challenges. But in the SSCI, we help to sort of align on those challenges and find a collective way. And that's why we actually sort of set the baselines for this criteria for the third-party programs that you use. But you're completely right. It's not an easy task, but it's not a one company's job. So it's that's why SSCI is actually here to help companies address that through their supply chain due diligence framework.
Yeah, and I think I was going to say, and I think that the SSCI is doing a great job, because what we're doing is to your points, we're trying to at least set the foundation, right? We know that every company is going to want to do something slightly different, but if we can agree on 90% of it, that makes it a lot less complex. And that's my hope as we go through this and we've done that, is let's agree on the 90%. Okay, we can all do the 10% differently because that's how we're going to compete. But the 90%, let's get the 90% to be similar.
Yes, I completely agree. So basically looking at the glass half full instead of half empty. Going to my next question now. SSCI is now embarking on a journey to benchmark third-party environmental programs. So we're still at the very beginning stage of that development. How do you see the SSCI helping to bring clarity and credibility into this other part of sustainability? Are there any particular areas of the environment that you are looking forward to working on?
Sure. So I look at this and say that, the benefits are really similar to the benefits that we went through and talked about on the social criteria benchmarking side, right? It's this assurance of a minimum set of standards that we're all going to be held to, that when they get claimed that we can deliver them. The environmental improvements and the protections that we have, right? Are they being classified correctly? Are we delivering them? To ensure that there's good governance around the operating system, so that, and you said the key word, so that we can trust the work that the schemes and the audit companies are doing, right? So that we can trust that we all agree that we're delivering on the stated mission. I think that the whole trust thing, very similar to on the social side, it is really a very similar kind of thing that we all know we need to do. And then your other question about, is there one particular area or a couple areas that are more important to us? And I think if we step back and we go back to, we are a farmer-owned co-op, always have been. It's in our structure, it's in our roots, it's in our DNA, it's everything we do. Those environmental areas, once again, are extremely important and relevant to them. So they're relevant to our members and our customers. So whether it's, water, soil health, land management, carbon, benchmarking in all those areas are extremely important up and down the entire supply chain. I don't think that one area on the environment side is more important than another for our case, because once again, we have this large agricultural supply chain.
Yes, you're completely right. When it comes to agriculture and environment in this sense, it's way more interrelated from one aspect to the other. And
Yes.
that's actually also where the challenges lie when it comes to setting up the benchmark. Just because the nature and environmental programs is just completely different than the social ones. And that's why actually we're very excited to kick off this work and really looking forward to working with members, including Land OLakes, to find ways where we could set the benchmark given the complexities and the varieties of the environmental standards out there. So you really touch upon an important point, and indeed the interrelatedness of the environmental benchmark add another layer of challenges that SSCI Coalition is aiming to address.
Yeah, and I expect that we'll spend many more hours on Zoom with my eyes being red again.
Indeed. So we're very sorry to tell you, but I think that is going to be the case.
I think it's like anything else. A job well done gets you more work to do very similar kind of thing. So we're going to do it all over again. So.
Indeed, and we truly hope that we could finally see you in person and other technical working group members and the coalition members in person whenever the crisis is calming down. All right, so I'll just give you my last but not least question.
Okay.
So if there was one piece of insight or advice that you could give another professional in the responsible sourcing world, what would it be?
Okay. I'm not sure I'm always good at giving advice because I don't take my own advice, but I'll give it, okay? My advice would be that the whole idea of collaboration and strategic alliances, we're going to need them from every different sector we can think of. That's the only way we're going to drive these ideas. We're going to need cooperation and collaboration from scheme owners and audit companies, places we don't usually think about collaborating. We think about collaborating with our suppliers and customers, but we don't think about collaborating with these other tangential organizations. And we're going to need to do that if we're going to yield the benefits to the entire supply chain from the consumer all the way back to the farm, right? So the collaboration and strategic alliances in the different sectors would be one part of the advice I would give. Another part would be the whole thing about transparency. This is that whole, how do we compete but still work together, right? Transparency is being demanded by our customers, by the consumer, by regulators. Everyone is demanding transparency, right? We all want to know where it came from, how long it's going to take, when's it going to show up. And it's getting exponentially harder every day. And so as a strategic sourcing professional, planning for that and laying the groundwork with your suppliers so that we can all take this journey on responsible sourcing together is going to be extremely important. So transparency to get the agility and responsive if we need is some more advice I'd give people, right? Because if you think about it, this, for Land OLakes, and we're so passionate about it because, we see the entire supply chain. We're one of the few organizations we can really see from where something starts, the seed itself, all the way to the end of the supply chain, the product the consumer produces, we see it. And so we see the value and we have this holistic view. And so the other advice I would give people is try to take a look at the holistic view. Not easy, but try to take a look at the holistic view.
I like the fact that your calling to action is to ask people to look at the holistic view, but at the same time also trying to strike the balance of the challenges out there. So I just like to echo that even in SSCI, transparency is indeed one of the sort of key reasons why SSCI is established in the first place. Even within our benchmarking process, we have one of the steps, which is the public consultation, is also to ensure that not only do we have an independent expert that carries out the benchmark, but we also make sure that whatever the independent expert reviews or benchmarked the scheme against the SSCI criteria are also reviewed by the public. So through the public consultation, in addition to the review of the SSCI coalition of action. So transparency is indeed a key issue, and also in the increasing regulations out there, demanding various types of transparency reporting. This is where the key issue and where the SSCI is also trying to focus its efforts on, to work together with the coalition members, at the same time with partners, with the other benchmarking platform like Global Sustainable Seafood Initiative, GSSI, with the ATSI operations, and also with other SSCI coalition members whom we know are in touch with the US Customs and Border Protection, for instance. So this is where actually the SSCI, what we normally like to call it as a forward-looking forum. So bringing together all of the expertise from each individual member representatives and actually identifying key emerging issues early on. And because some companies sometimes do not know a specific risk or specific regulation that is coming up just like that. So sometimes it's a good forward-looking forum where we exchange information, good practice, etc. So thanks a lot for calling that out, and you indeed touch upon all the critical points of why SSCI is there and the SSCI's business case. Yeah. So
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I truly appreciate it, and I was just going to wrap up the session, but I'd probably like to give you a couple more seconds to sort of wrap up and say more things if you wish.
Yeah, the only thing I really want to say, and as I speak to other supply chain professionals, I think that the supply chain and our ability to work together is going to be very important as we think about a sustainable supply chain, whether that's the environmental side, whether that's the social side, or any other components. Because I firmly believe, and my challenge to all supply chain professionals is that I firmly believe that if we can do this, supply chains can save the world. Because if we succeed, we will make the world a better place.
I like that ending note, so I'll probably just end there. We want to make the world a better place at SSCI by making supply chain easier for our members.
Yes.
Okay, well, great. Let's end it with a great note. So I'd probably like to end the session right now. But before that, I would like to thank you very much, Yone, for participating in the SSCI Insight, having your feedback, your experience in SSCI, and obviously your expertise in the landscape has been very useful. And I hope the audience, the listeners, also feel the same way. So I hope to be able to see you soon in person. And please, everyone, stay in touch with SSCI. And if you have any questions, please do let us know at ssci@theconsumergoodsforum.com. Thank you so much, Yone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.